So the agenda we have is I'm just going to do a quick recap of App Engine super fast in case you missed the keynote. Talk a little bit about the architecture, the cloud architecture, how you can build and put these things together. Discuss some of the interesting integration scenarios. And actually, right before that, we have a local guest speaker who's just going to talk quickly about some of the interesting things he's done with App Engine and Android and some of his other applications. And then we're going to go through a little bit of details and demos about some of the technologies that we talked about. A little bit about Google Cloud SQL. I'll show you how it works. Also Google Storage, if you don't know about Google Storage and how you can use it. I'm going to go a little bit back and talk about my PHP MySQL demo that I got working for those of you that are interested in running PHP on top of App Engine. And then I'm going to do a sample application to show you how you can use the Google Plus APIs and run your application on App Engine connecting to Google Plus if you want to start building web applications with Google Plus. So as we talked about earlier in the keynote, this is the traditional problem that we're trying to solve, which is making it easier for you to build, manage, and deploy your apps in the cloud without having to worry about the machines and the scaling and the backups and all of that overhead that makes it difficult to build web applications. 15 years ago when I was building web applications, back in those days it was called Application Service Provider, and I was building an HR application, and we had to write everything in C++, and there were no frameworks, and it was very, very difficult, and we had to use a very expensive big database that crashed all the time and required constant upgrades, and then we had to build data centers and copy the data centers, and it was very painful. So I'm very grateful for App Engine personally. That's why I came to Google. I love it as a way to simplify my life as a developer, and hopefully some of you can take advantage of that. So as we talked about earlier, and I think this is important to understand the history, we started in 2008 with Python, which is a great language. We use it a lot at Google. We added Java in 2009. We went then task queues, high replication data store, backends. We have Go, which is another experimental language on the platform that you can take advantage of. And we have 1.5 billion page views. So it is a lot of applications on the platform today. So it is really reliable, really scalable, and we're really happy about the momentum, and hopefully we can get more people building on top of the platform. So we have these hundreds of thousands of applications. What kind of things are people building? What are the categories or the groups of applications? And so we see lots of developers using App Engine to back mobile applications. So Android, iOS, any sort of mobile application where you maybe need to store state, maybe you need to deliver assets to the mobile application, maybe you need to synchronize between a web and a mobile client. We see lots of developers using App Engine because we're really good at that scaling. Another great category are social and mobile games, and this is where App Engine started in its early days. We had lots of open social games on the platform, lots of Facebook games, massive scale. We have tens of millions of users on the platform every day. We continue to do that, and the thing about social is lots of people using your application, so you don't want to launch your application and have it crash because you didn't have enough servers. So this is really where App Engine does a good job. Then we have just consumer web applications. So someone wants to build some sort of application that pulls consumer information and it sort of grows virally, or you want to do a business-to-consumer application where you don't know all of your traffic and how it's going to be handled. App Engine's really good at those. And then we really have the next generation of applications that we're going to start seeing on the platform. We have had businesses build on the platform, but now that we have Java, Python, we have our service guarantee, and we have our Cloud SQL database, we really feel that a lot of business developers that want to build business class applications.
Tak já se jmenuji Tomáš z Vína a jsem z firmy Multimedia Ateliér. Na Twitteru mě najdete jako Tomucha. V Ateliéru my se zabýváme dost takovou širokou škálou služeb, design a online marketing a social media a informační systémy a právě třeba Android a App Engine. Poslední, co jsme dělali, to jsem tady dostal dovoleno se pochlubit, Allianz křižovatky vlastně na zakázku pro pojišťovnu Allianz. Je to taková soutěžní hra na Androidy a na iPhony. Generuje to křižovatkový situace a vy máte správně určit, jak ty autíčka mají jakoby projet. Je to čím dál rychlejší, těžší a těžší. Každý měsíc Allianz vybírá 3 nejlepší, kteří dostanou 50% slevu na povinný ručení. Můžete si to stáhnout, i když nemáte auto. A na co my jsme použili App Engine? My jsme s App Enginem začali poměrně dávno, možná by se dalo říct. Udělali jsme takovou jakoby, nástroj pro Google Wave, tak ten máme teď jakoby v archivu. Instant Gadget, vložilo se do toho HTML a udělalo to gadget do Google Wave, jestli si to pamatujete, jak to API tenkrát vypadalo. Moc krásný projektík. Potom máme třeba v App Engineu takový interní systém, jestli znáte User Voice nebo Get Satisfaction, takovýhle nástroje, který si vlastně přilepíte na svůj websiteu a návštěvníci můžou vám posílat nějaký feedback skrz to, tak jsme si udělali takový vlastní, který se nám jakoby dobře integruje s těma našima aplikacema. A pak představím 2 projekty takový, já nevím, větší nebo zajímavější spíš než větší. První je Meme Reaktor. To je taková, v patičce té stránky se píše, že jsme to udělali a nevíme proč, a já to nevím úplně do dneška, nikdo to pořádně kloudně neví a zatím pořád nevíme, co s tím. Já vám řeknu, co to dělá a jak vlastně používáme ty Google technologie v tomhletom projektu. To je social content sharing věc, která funguje jakoby trošku jinak, než je zvykem. Nemusíte budovat sítě virtuálních přátel a různých kontaktů a followovat lidi. Ty věci se tam šířejí jiným způsobem. Vy, když tam něco pošlete do toho reaktoru, tady je reaktor, tak on vybere 3 náhodný uživatele toho reaktoru a těm to pošle. Úplně náhodně vybraný. A oni tomu dávají buď palec nahoru nebo palec dolů, jak se jim to líbí, nelíbí. Když dají palec nahoru, tak se to zase pošle 3 náhodným. Dalším, když dají palec dolů, tak na tom místě tady se to zarazí prostě. A dál to nejde. Takže se to šíří jakoby takovou řetězovou reakcí a když tam pošlete něco vtipného, zábavného, co se hodně lidem líbí, tak to v té síti vlastně vybuchne a všichni se to dozvědí. Takže vy vlastně nemusíte jakoby budovat ty sítě známých a šíří si to nějakým způsobem samo. Primárně to je pro vlastně Android, to Androidí aplikace, ale je to ten typ aplikace, kdy jakoby pro to ukládání dat a pro tu serverovou část právě používáme App Engine. Mimo jiný z těch Google technologií tam je třeba Google JSON, jestli neznáte, taková implementace JSONu, docela zajímavá, příjemná na používání. Google Translate používáme API, aby jsme poznali, jestli jste to tam poslali česky nebo anglicky, nebo v jakém jazyce to je a poslali jenom lidem, který vám rozumějí, tak se chodíme ptát Google Translate. Samozřejmě Google Analytics jak na webu, tak na té mobilní aplikaci. A pak ten App Engine, jednak teda přihlašování uživatelů, že nemusíme řešit, ale prostě všichni ty androidisti stejně mají ten Google účet, takže se přihlašujeme tím, nějaký tásky, cron, samozřejmě maily to posílá, krásně se tam pracuje s obrázkama. Ten obrázek, když je nahraný někam v tom jejich cloudu, tak takovým jednoduchým parametříkem si ho můžete v tom cloudu rescalovat, což je pro tu Android aplikaci hrozně příjemný, že to tam nemusíme řešit, víme, jak ten obrázek má být velký, tak jenom přidáme parametr a on nám to rescaluje. A třeba ten cron, na co my to tam používáme, když máme uživatele a teď máme vybrat náhodně jednoho z nich, tak jakoby jak vyberu náhodně, že jo, z nějaký tabulky záznam. Tak my to děláme tak, že právě nám tam běží cron task, který vlastně ty uživatele prioritizuje. Rovná nám je do fronty, kdo už dlouho nic nedostal, kdo chce dostávat víc, kdo chce dostávat míň. Popřehazujeme je a když přijde nějaký nový post, který by se měl šířit, tak to pošleme mezi lidi. Potom jsme dělali pro Android takový zajímavý, nejsou to veřejný projekty, jsou to jakoby enterprise nasazení na zakázku vytváření aplikace, všechny mají podobný cíl, slouží pro kontroly v terénu. Jo? Tady třeba na Šumavě tím kontrolují dodavatele, nebo tím loví kůrovce, když přijde někde, vidí, že to tam je teda napadený kůrovcem, tak GPS-ka, pozice odhadne počet stromů a už se to posílá někam do nějakého systému, kde se s ním dál pracuje. Tady to 4P ty provádějí takový ty ochutnávky v supermarketech, jo? Když tam stojí ta pěkná hosteska a dává vám ochutnat sejra, tak to jakoby zajišťují oni a ty zase to potřebují kontrolovat v tom terénu, nafotit si, že ten stánek vypadá, jak má. A SGS, to je nadnárodní firma, která vlastně dělá přesně tohleto. Inspekce někde venku v terénu, kontroly, bezpečnost práce, stavební dozor, pohonné hmoty třeba kontrolují, široký portfolio služeb. Je to jedna z mála firm jako na světě, který dokážou pro vás jakoby zajistit to, asi vy to potřebovat nebudete. Že v Číně zapečetí jejich inspektor kontejner a když ten kontejner dopluje do Argentíny, tak jejich inspektor to zase rozpečetí a zjistí, jestli se něco po cestě jako nedělo špatného. To asi málo kdo umí a pro ně jsme dělali zase takovou aplikaci, aby inspektor do mobilu si nafotil, zapsal protokol, pak se o to ty lidi už nemusí starat, jo? Nemusí ty fotky stahovat někam si je kopírovat a tak. No a přišlo nám, že to jakoby se těm zákazníkům líbí, že jim to šetří čas, šetří jim to peníze, takže celkem logická úvaha je udělat z toho produkt. Ten není ještě venku, pracujeme na něm, Inspekto se to jmenuje, .to jsou hrozně drahý domény, musím říct, tak si vymyslete nějaký jiný název. A to dělá tohleto. Na Android Marketu si stáhnete aplikaci a když jste, já nevím, stavební dozor, třeba takových je spousta lidí, tak se vám to bude hodit. Můžete tím právě kontrolovat vývoj té stavby a tak. A teďka zase důležitý tady je pro nás ten App Engine z toho důvodu, že ono to bude samozřejmě v nějakým freemium modelu, jinak to asi dneska nejde, takže tam budeme mít 100 uživatelů neplatících, kteří si vystačí se základníma funkcema a prostě stačí jim to. No a pak někdo, kdo zjistí, že mu to taky šetří čas, peníze, že by chtěl víc těch feature a ten nám třeba dá nějaký peníze. A zase Android, Google Goson, Google Analytics, Google Mapy, abyste viděl, kde ty kontroly byly. Ta administrace je v GVTčku a zase App Engine. Je to takový pure Google experience, bych řekl. Ten App Engine je tam právě kvůli tomu škálování, protože aby taková věc byla úspěšná, tak je potřeba tam mít spousty těch neplatících, který musíte nějak obsloužit, a pak ty platící, který sponzorují vlastně ten zbytek. A tím se dostávám tak jako k závěru. Proč teda ten App Engine, nebo proč já si myslím, není to oficiální vyjádření společnosti Google, je to takový jako můj pocit, proč bychom měli my používat App Engine a proč ho používáme. Když je nějaké přání, aby se nahrnuli tisíce uživatelů, budete je muset nějak obsloužit samozřejmě a mohli byste velice rychle zjistit, že nejste schopní třeba tu svoji infrastrukturu tomu přizpůsobit dostatečně rychle, dostatečně včas, ztratíte prostě drive, přijdete o ty uživatele, kteří se nedostanou do té služby, prostě protože ty vaše servery na to nebyly připravený. A to tady jakoby odpadá. Programování je zábava, deployování je oprus. Nevím, kdo by to potvrdil, kdo si to myslí teda. No to je vynikající, to jsem se trefil skvěle. To je prostě samozřejmě oprus. Musíte nainstalovat toho Tomcata, tu databázi, operační systém, prostě hromady věcí, jako který nebaví nikoho dělat. A tady klikneme v Eclipseu, že, na čudlík a ono se nám to deployuje samo. No tak co můžu víc potřebovat. A péče o hardware je ještě větší oprus než to deployování. A kdo by to potvrdil ještě zase? Teď tomu odcházejí zdroje, disky, musíte to měnit, tak když chcete prostě, aby tam těch lidí bylo opravdu spousta, tak jasně, nakoupíte spousta počítačů a pak ve finále skončíte tak, že tam někdo jezdí s vozíkem a vyměňuje ty harddisky, že jo. A to by mohl dělat někdo jiný, vlastně klidně. Třeba Google. A další taková varianta, pokud jakoby reálně zvažujete nasazení nějaký NoSQL na tu vaši úlohu, že se vám bude hodit, tak tady to máte vyloženě na klíč zadarmo. Ten App Engine si to ukládá vlastně do NoSQL. a je to velice snadno se s tím prostě vám bude pracovat. Takže je to takový jako, jak bych to shrnul, pro nás si myslím, že je to takový jako bezrizikový, jo? I když třeba je to nějaký náš vlastní teda projekt, který prostě na 95% pohoří, že jo, buďme realisti, tak my jsme nemuseli investovat do počítačů, infrastruktury, nakupovat software, já nevím co všecko, připravovat se na to, že třeba o nás někde napíšou a ty lidi se nahrnou. To vůbec nemusíme řešit, můžeme to udělat vlastně v malém měřítku a ono to funguje a když se ty lidi přihrnou, tak je obsloužíme tím App Enginem.
All right. I hope that was all. He was saying good things. Thank you very much, Tomáš. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, he's built more apps than me times 20. So thank you very much. Very good. So quickly, I'm just going to talk about how you can use all of the different parts of Google Cloud together, all the different technologies we have. And so we have compute, where you run your logic, your Java code, your Python code on App Engine. We have storage. And we have at least three different big primary storage options for you. We have our powerful data store, which is a non-relational data store where we started. We now introduce Google Cloud SQL for those of you that want to use a relational database. And then we have Google Storage, where you can store objects via REST API and access them. And you can mix and match all of these different things together, use them in your application or use them externally. So you have compute, you have storage to write your data in different ways. And then we have all of the different Google services or services outside of Google that you can use together. So these are the parts of Google Cloud and how you can think about mixing them together to meet your application's needs. So Tomáš mixed lots of different pieces together with Android and App Engine and the websites. So he was able to kind of plug all these together. And that's, again, the sort of the point of this talk. So really quick, we have three ways of handling requests coming into App Engine. We have front ends for short requests, less than 60 seconds, so it'll trigger your application, you serve the request right or back out. We have back ends for long-running requests with different memory requirements, so you can run code for a very long time. And then we have task queues, where you can put work and you can do it later. You can pull it off inside of App Engine, or you can pull it off from a third party, a different system, and do the work. And I'm going to show you an example of how to do that. And then we again talked about the three different storage options that we have, Data Store, Google SQL, which is new, and Google Storage. So we can skip over that. And then we have all of the different tools and SDKs that developers can use to build these applications. So we have App Engine SDK. We have the API console, which I'm going to show you, where you turn on the services. And then we have, if you are building in Java, a Google plugin for Eclipse, where you can manage your build your Java applications inside of App Engine and also integrate with Android development as well in one place. And there's always command line tools for, if you don't like any of these IDEs, you can run from the command line, you can run in other editors as well. So this is sort of how we put all of this together. We have App Engine as the box. You have your web clients, your web browsers serving requests. You have mobile apps making requests. And then you have other clouds, which can make requests into App Engine via task queues to pull work off. So these are the different ways to think of an integration, how you can use App Engine with the web and with other clouds. And then at the bottom, we have Google Storage, which sits outside of App Engine, but App Engine can talk to. Google SQL actually uses Google Storage for backup, which I will show you. And then we have our services APIs, which also can use Google Storage. So you can use Google Storage as one centralized place to put your data and access it via App Engine, access it via Google APIs, or any other client that you have. So let's just talk really quick about backends. If you don't, does anyone here know about backends or have used them? A few people? How many people actually, let me ask, who uses App Engine at all? Ooh, all right. And then how many Java developers? Okay, and Python? Ooh, good. And Ruby? Few Ruby? PHP? few. .NET, couple. What did I miss? Go? Any Go developers? No Go developers? Okay, so we're getting better. Okay, good. Okay, good. So we have a mix of different people, so that's good. And again, one of the things with App Engine is you can mix and match different runtimes, and so we have 3 primary runtimes. We have Java, Python, Go, and then on top of Java, if it will run on the top of bytecode, you can do things like JRuby for Ruby. You can use Quarkus for PHP, Scala, and other things on top. So why do we have backends? Just real quick, because if you're building a big application, maybe you can't serve the request in 60 seconds. Maybe you have to talk to other systems. So backends were created for what we call workload diversity, which means that you have to deal with different types of requests. And there are 4 different categories that you can look at backends. So backends can have a lot of memory. So you can actually create or provision backends that have a much bigger footprint than front ends. So if you're building a search index or a social graph, or you need to keep a lot of memory state for really fast access, backends are a really good way to do that, and it's guaranteed to be there. If you have CPU-intensive applications, there are different CPU classes with backends that you get at different speeds. So if you need to process a lot of work fast, you can get a bigger backend to help you process your work, and there's some examples of encoding or scientific computing that you can use backends for. Background processing for data pipeline, data transformation, grooming, so it's kind of scheduled tasks, as well as scripting if you need to do some schema migrations or run some queries or do report generation offline in batch mode. You can also use backends for that. So that's a better use of backends than just handling web requests on front ends. The second part I wanted to spend a second is pool queues. Have any of the App Engine developers used pool queues or queues, task queues? So pool queues is a way when you're handling requests, if you need to do something like update the data store, or maybe you need to make a post to Twitter, you can take the work and you can enqueue it, and you can process the work later. And there are 2 different ways of doing it. There's what's called a push queue and what's called a pull queue. We've always had push queues, which means that an App Engine task will pick it up and do the work immediately. Pull queues allows you to queue the work up and then do it later on within App Engine or somewhere else. So if you wanted to have your own service, or you had a mainframe that needed to do some work that you couldn't put into the cloud, you could use pull queues. So they give you more control when you want to process work. And when you put a task into the queue, the way you do it is you take it out via this REST interface and you lease it for a certain amount of time. So maybe you lease it for 5 minutes, and you should do the work, and then when you're finished, you say, I'm done. But if you don't do the work and the lease expires, someone else can pick up the work again. So that's why we have leases, to make sure that there is the work will be guaranteed to happen. And again, we have a nice REST API that you can use to pull tasks off of App Engine from anywhere else. So to use pull queues, I just want to walk through some of the steps. We talked about the task consumer leases it via the REST API. I will show you. Then App Engine sends the task. The consumer pulls it, does its work, and then it goes back to App Engine and deletes it and says, I'm finished. I've completed the work. So that's how pull queues works conceptually. And let's look at the RESTful API. And I will show you where you can access this API. So there's a standard endpoint, and we have an OAuth scope. So you can allow third parties to use OAuth libraries to access tasks. You can delegate who has access to it. And you can specify this in the queue.yaml file. And so let's look at an example of a queue here. So let's see if I can. I cannot zoom in here. Let's see if I can zoom in here. So what we do is we're making a post to the task queue, and we're leasing it. I want the JSON format. I'm leasing it for 30 seconds, and I'm pulling off 100 tasks. Okay, so I'm getting 100 work units because I want to do a bunch of stuff. And the result is standard JSON, and we're only looking at one of the results, of course. And you can see we specify the kind, and we have an items array. We have the ID, queue name, And then the payload is base64 encoded, so that's the data you're transmitting from App Engine to your client. You pull that out, you unencode it, you can do your work. And then we have the queue timestamp and lease timestamp. So that's how you can use it's RESTful API. So you could call this, for instance, from any other web server anywhere else, as long as you went through the OAuth 2 flow to authorize the task. So let me just show you real quick. We'll go to a demo. I will show you how do you access this pool queue. So this is code.google.com, and this is where we have lots of code samples and documentation. And under here, you'll see we have API console. And API console is now where we are putting most of our APIs. And so what you see here is my project. And so you can create many different projects. And this is an explanation of my project. I have an ID and the owner, I'm the owner. And then over here, I have all the different services that I'm using. So we have Cloud SQL, Cloud Storage, Google Plus API, and then you have the status, is it up or down? But what's nice about the project is you can take your APIs. Let's say I want to turn on more services. This is where I can turn on more services. Let's say my application, I now want to I want to use the tasks API. I can just toggle this switch, and that will turn on the tasks API, and it will use the same OAuth tokens I've already created. I don't have to create any new tokens. I just specify the scope when I use it. So it's an easy place to use all these different APIs inside of App Engine. And so there is I believe it's here. If I can find it, I might not have enabled it here. There is a task queue API which shows up here. It's not showing, maybe I'm not logged into the right account. But essentially, this is where you get it. And it's pretty easy to use. The other thing I should say about the Google Code project site is this is where you can also have a team. And so if you want to have other developers use the same project without having to create lots of IDs and have to copy credentials, you can add them to your project so you can have lots of people collaborate on your application. And there's also a nice billing report. So if you actually are billing using your API, you can pay for it here. And there's a nice reports interface where you can see the different calls that you have, the quota that you've used for your project. So I obviously have not used this, but you can see the quotas that you have here, and you can see how many API calls that you've made. So it's a good way to take a look at how much you're using of the Google APIs. So let's go back here. And quickly, I'm just going to talk about Google Cloud Storage and show you an example. Has anyone here used Google Cloud Storage? A few people. Has anyone here used S3 or some other similar? So it's very similar to that. Same idea. Google Storage is a service for developers that you can have RESTful access. And you can, the difference is you can store big objects, terabytes size objects. And we have the RESTful interface. And then we have a bunch of really good command line tools and libraries. And there's a really nice web interface for you to be able to upload your data. And it's integrated into App Engine. It's integrated into Google Cloud SQL. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a second. So the big thing about Google Cloud Storage to understand is that your data is replicated to multiple data centers. We have read-your-write consistency. So when you put an object, it is instantly, you will get the correct version when you read it, as long as you reference that ID. We have resumable uploads, downloads, and domain-scoped namespaces if you're using Google Apps domains. And then we have, of course, the OAuth authentication and sharing. So it makes it really easy to persist your data. And so let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to go back to the browser, and we're going to go to my Google Storage console. And so this is where you have all of your information about Google Storage, their project ID, and you have your storage IDs and whatnot. But what I want to show you is the Google Cloud Storage Manager, which is a really nice web browser. And so let's see, let me shrink this so we can see this. And so what you see here is my Google Storage account, and these are my buckets. And inside of buckets, I can put data, or I can create a new bucket all through this web interface. If I wanted to go to my Iein SQL bucket, I could click there, and I could see I backed up my music database, my gigantic music database with 2 columns, 2 rows. But also you can upload data to your bucket. Let's see if this works really easily. I will make a new file here, and we will try to update it here. So I will go here and hello, save this on my desktop. Hello from GDD. No, hello from Prague. I'll save it, and my file should hopefully be here. And we use all the fancy HTML5 stuff, and it uploads the file, and there it is. So so this is a really nice way to move files back and forth, simple with a web browser, without having to have any tools. But what about the command line? What if I want to script my stuff? So I will open up the command line, and we have a utility called gsutil. And let me see here if I can get big here again. Okay, so we're going to do gsutil ls. It's going to list my buckets out. And here's my buckets, and let's see if my file is there. So I will do gsutil ls Iein-SQL. I think I just do that, and there it is. It lists my file, and you can see, my file is right there. So it's a really easy way to move files back and forth from the command line, or you can use the browser interface, or we have Java, as well as a bunch of other libraries that you can use and embed inside of your code if you want to use those helper functions. So Google Storage is really easy to use. Okay, let's go back to the keynote here real quick. So Cloud SQL. We talked about it in the keynote. Who uses a relational database here? Who likes the relational database? Okay, that's good. Well, we have an offering for you. So now you can use a relational database and App Engine, which is good. Good news for you and good news for us, because we want more developers building. And so, Google Cloud SQL is a web service for you to use relational databases in the cloud. And we make it easy for you to take your existing MySQL database. Let's say I have a MySQL here on my desktop, and I want to build an app, and I want to query it into the cloud. I can take my MySQL binary file, upload it to Google Storage, and import it, and it will just run. It's binary compatible. It will just run. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. So it makes it really easy if you just had a web application that you were maybe running in Apache and whatever you were doing. You don't want to have to deal with that anymore. You can now use Google Storage, Google SQL, to run your database. So it's very easy to use. I will show you. One of the unique things about Google Storage, Google SQL, excuse me, is that we synchronously replicate your data to multiple data centers, so that if we lose one data center, the next SQL call coming in will work, transparent to your application. If we lose 2 data centers, which is very rare, the call will come through and it will still work. So your application can stay available, and you don't have to worry about replication or backup. We handle that for you. The one thing I will say is, let me go play here. We talked about its high availability. Import-export using MySQL dump, so it's really easy to get your data out and put it inside of Google SQL. And we optimize today for databases in the size between 1 to 10 gigabytes. So if you fit in that size, pretty good. We, of course, can go bigger, but right now we're starting in that size. And we're optimizing in the hundreds of queries per second. So do most people fit within this range of? You can have lots of these. You don't have to have just one, but for each one, that's about the size. Any developers have bigger than that? A couple, okay. So yeah, I mean, you can have multiple instances running, and then we hope to, of course, offer bigger sizes. So Google always gets bigger, so hopefully that will happen. And then we have really good support in Java. We have a really, really good JDBC driver. If you build in Python, we have a DB API, and I think we have other language bindings coming, so if you want to run some other languages, you should be able to use it. And you can only use, not only use, but we recommend that you use it with a high replication data store, which itself is highly available. So let's create a database in the cloud. What does it look like? I want to create a 10 gigabyte database. How long does it take to do? Let's try that out. Let's see. So we go back to the browser. And so if you are not in the Google Storage, Google SQL access, it's an easy web page to sign up. And then what happens is in your services, when you sign up, it will turn on right here. And then you just click on, and now you can start using it. So let's look at Google Cloud SQL. So what I have here is I have three instances running. And I created one in the United States, Iein one. I visited Moscow, so I created one in Moscow. I was at Warsaw earlier this week. I created one in Warsaw. So we'll create another instance, and let's see what it looks like. So what you do is we go here to, new instance. And we give it a name. So we're going to call this GDD Prague. And you choose a size. And you have 3 options: small, medium, large. So I'm going to make a big one. We'll see how long it takes. So we'll do large. And one of the nice things about the database is once you create it, you authorize an App Engine application, or more than one, to be able to use it. So we take care of the security, so you don't have to worry about authentication between your MySQL database and App Engine. We transparently make sure it works. So my application is called Iein Sandbox. And you can put many. I have another one called Iein Sandbox-HRD. So you can create many App Engine apps can share the same database. And we'll create the instance. And if it works, I've reached the maximum number of instances. I'm going to have to delete one. Okay, let's do that. Let's go delete one here. We'll go into Moscow, and let's see. Can I delete an instance? We'll delete this one. I guess you can only have 3 right now in the preview. So I'm using the same that you can use. Okay, so it's gone. Look at that. I deleted it so fast. Let's make a new one now. Let's try it again. I learned something today. So we're going to do GDD Prague. And we'll do large. And we'll just do Iein Sandbox, HRD, Sandbox HRD. We click Create Instance. There we go. Okay, so we see it's creating the database in the background. It will probably be done in about a minute or 2. We'll come back and check. But it's pretty easy to create it. It provisions it, and it's running. And then you can make live requests to it. So it's really, really easy to make that database. Let me show you one other quick thing in the console. We'll go to one that's already running here, and so you can see this instance is using 20 out of 10 gigabytes. We have very nice logging, so you can see what's happened to your users. So I can see when I created it, when I started to back it up, and then I changed some settings, so you actually have a trail of the different people that are using your database. And then we have a SQL prompt if you wanted to be able to do quick select statements and look at your data. You could do something like select asterisk from discography, which should be my music database. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. Okay, there we go. So there's my data, and you can do updates and whatever sort of SQL statements you wanted to do really easily. So let's go back and see if it's done. We go to Prague. Okay, so there we go. It's running. So now I've built a 10 gigabyte database, and I can send a bunch of traffic to it. Really easy. So that's really, really good. The one other demo, does anyone here use tools for SQL development, IDE type tools, Squirrel SQL or anything like that? Okay, good. So we also have we have a JDBC driver that you can also use locally on your machine to connect to your Google SQL instance and remotely manage and administer it. So I have over here somewhere Squirrel SQL, and it's really easy to use. So you just download Squirrel SQL, you put in you register the JDBC driver, and then you can of course just make your queries, and it connects and it works. So if I click connect here, I don't have to enter my credentials because I've stored them locally. We'll see if it works. There we go. And so I have my my apps all set up. So we have right there a really easy way for you to use your standard Java SQL tools on your desktop to remotely manage and administer your Google SQL application. So that's really nice from developers. So hopefully that will be useful for you. Okay, last thing is how do you back up your database? you can go up here and you say export data. And you just give it a bucket name. And you give it a file name. And we're going to just call this prog backup. And you can, of course, compress it. And you click export. And what will start happening is, if I refresh this, go into my Google Storage bucket, you can see it's starting to back up my Google SQL right here. And then when it's finished, I can drag it. I could drag it from here and put it on my desktop, and then I have a full backup of my data. So it makes it really easy for the application developer to back up your database. If you don't want to use Google SQL anymore, you can use something else. Or if you want to be able to snapshot your data, it's a really, really easy way to use it. OK. Let me just talk real quick about PHP and MySQL on App Engine. I'm going to go back here. So has anyone here heard of Quarkus? OK. So Quarkus is an open source project built by the Couch.io guys, the guys that built the Resin application server, Java application server. And it is a PHP interpreter. And so you can take standard PHP code, and it interprets that, translates it to JVM instructions, and it runs the PHP code. So in my demo on the keynote, I showed how we can basically run this standard PHP. Any sort of standard PHP more or less works. There are a few little quirks. We're working to fix it. But it's really easy. All you have to do to run it, I will try here. If it works, we will see. A little risky. OK, there we go. So it's running. We'll hit my app, standard.php. And I'm running it locally against my computer. So here we go. It printed out standard PHP, if you know what this means. I haven't used PHP in years, so I don't know all of the details of this, but it seems to be pretty good. We have lots of developers that have started to work on very popular PHP frameworks, things like WordPress and Drupal, starting to kind of port these. And now that you have SQL, you can actually use PHP with SQL, and then you can run it all in the cloud. You don't have to worry about hosting it somewhere else. The trick to make it work, and I'm going to put a post about this so give you instructions, is you basically add the Quarkus library, which I just called resin out right here, and then you add one filter to the web XML, which is right here. And this basically, all PHP scripts coming in gets rendered by the Google Quarkus servlet, which renders the PHP so you can see it. So I encourage any PHP developers to try it out and let us know how we can improve it, make it better. OK, almost done. We're almost out of time because we're running a little late. So let me skip through this really quickly because I wanted to show you the Google Plus APIs. OK, so has anyone here used Google Plus API yet? One person. OK, so Google Plus you can access with, there's a starter project here. So if you go to developers.google.com/plus, the examples, there's many different examples and libraries here under downloads. There are two App Engine projects. And I'm just going to show you the Java one, which I've already installed. And it's pretty simple Java. I'll just show you how it works real fast. So it's actually just a JSP page. So there's a couple of helper classes up here to take care of the OAuth authentication flow. And then it's standard JSP, if you know how to use JSPs, not that hard. But let's just run it and see what it looks like. So I got to stop my other app. And this will be, let's see, stop. OK, I guess it stopped. OK, let's run it now. So then we run. And we'll go here to the, already still using it. OK, I will quit Eclipse and start it again because it's a little funny. But I've actually, let me show you what it looks like deployed. So I have it deployed to plus.iein-sandbox.xbot.com. All the application does is it handles the OAuth 2 flow. It's really easy to use the Google Plus API, so once you run the application, here's the OAuth flow in Czech, I guess. That looks good, maybe. And if it works, there is my post and profile, and I think here's a picture from today. So it's a pretty easy sample project. You just install it, and then you can start customizing and using the Google Plus API and making wonderful applications. Okay, back to the presentation, the last couple slides here. To get started, go to codegoogle.com. You can use the API console to turn it on. It's really easy. And so to summarize it all up, as Thomas showed us and you saw from the different examples, there are lots of interesting ways that you can use App Engine, either standalone or with mobile or with your own application somewhere else and with other APIs on the web. There's lots of different ways to mix and match a relational database now with our data store or just use the relational database. And it's really easy to use Google Storage as a way to move between the two. So we hope that these are useful tools and technologies for you to build applications that are easy for you as a developer. Please come see me afterwards. I'll be in the office hours or I'll be around if you have any questions. Thank you for your time. I'm very happy to be here and I appreciate it. Thank you.